Once upon a time, in a small, humble village, there lived a young girl named Norma and her father, Lando. Norma was kind and thoughtful, but life had never been easy for her. Norma had always been different from her classmates. From the moment she stepped into school as a young girl, she felt the weight of the world on her shoulders. Her classmates, all from well-off families, never missed a chance to tease her about her old clothes, her worn-out shoes, and especially her outdated keypad phone. While they flaunted their sleek Android phones, dressed in the latest fashion, and talked excitedly about their expensive new gadgets, Norma sat quietly, trying her best to be invisible. She was used to the cruel whispers, the mocking laughter, and the way people looked down on her simply because her family had less. At the center of her world was her father, Lando. He was an old man who worked as a tricycad driver, pedaling passengers through the busy streets, earning just enough to get by. Ever since Norma's mother passed away, it had been just the two of them. Lando worked harder than anyone could imagine, often pushing his body to its limits. But no matter how hard he worked, it was never enough for the things Norma needed to feel like she belonged. Unbeknownst to Norma, her father was quietly doing everything he could to ease her burden. He saw how she longed for the things her classmates had, a modern phone, fashionable clothes, and shoes that didn't look so worn. Though Lando barely made enough for their daily needs, he took on extra jobs, peddling long hours, and even doing odd jobs at night just to save enough to buy the things Norma silently wished for. Every evening, when Norma came home from school, Lando would ask how her day had been. But the truth was, Norma rarely answered. Her heart was filled with frustration and sadness, not knowing why their life had to be so hard. She didn't see the exhaustion in her father's eyes, or the way his hands trembled from the hard work he endured. All she could feel was the growing distance between her and her classmates, a gap that seemed impossible to close. Finally, after months of saving, Lando had done it. He had enough to buy his daughter the things she wanted, a brand new Android phone, stylish clothes, and a pair of shoes that would make her proud to walk into school. He laid them out carefully on her bed, a small smile on his face as he imagined her joy. He couldn't wait to see her light up when she saw them. All he wanted was for her to be happy, to finally feel like she belonged. But that morning, as Lando tried to catch her before she left for school, Norma barely said a word. She was still weighed down by the bitterness she had carried for so long, feeling that nothing in her life would ever change. Without noticing the gifts her father had left for her, she rushed out the door, too frustrated to look back. Lando stood there for a moment, heart heavy, before he sighed deeply and sat down to write her a note. He knew he hadn't been able to give her much, but he hoped this small gesture would show her how much he loved her. His hands trembled as he wrote, "My dearest daughter, I know our life has never been easy, and I am sorry for that. I've worked as hard as I can, but I know it hasn't always been enough. Please forgive me. Today I was finally able to get the things you've wanted, the phone, the clothes, and the shoes. I hope they make you happy, because all I've ever wanted is to see you smile. I'm proud of you and I love you more than anything in this world. Please don't feel ashamed of our life. I've always tried my best for you. With all my love, your father." Lando placed the note on top of the gifts, and with a heavy heart, set off for another day of work. His body ached, but he pushed through, knowing that he had finally given his daughter what she needed to feel like she belonged. Later that day, Norma was on her way home from school, sitting in a crowded jeepney, when traffic came to a sudden stop. Annoyed, she watched as people began stepping out of their vehicles, heading towards something up ahead. Curious, she followed, squeezing through the crowd until her heart nearly stopped. There, lying in the middle of the street, was her father's tricycad, overturned, broken. And next to it, on the cold, hard pavement, was her father, Lando, motionless. Panic surged through her as she ran toward him, pushing past the crowd. She fell to her knees beside him, cradling his lifeless body in her arms. Tears streamed down her face as she screamed for him to wake up, but deep down, she knew he was gone. Her father, the man who had given her everything he could, was no longer there to hold her, to reassure her, to tell her that everything would be okay. That night, in the quiet of their small home, Norma found the note her father had written. As she read his words, her heart shattered. The gifts he had worked so hard to buy, the love he had poured into every sacrifice, it was all there in front of her, and she had never even noticed. She sobbed as she held the note close to her chest, overwhelmed by the realization that her father had always given her everything he had, not just in material things, but in love, in sacrifice, in the quiet, unwavering way he had been there for her every single day. In that moment, Norma understood the depth of her father's love. It wasn't in the phone or the shoes or the clothes. It was in the way he had silently endured the weight of the world for her, never asking for anything in return. And now, he was gone. Her father's love had always been enough. Moral lesson of the story: a parent's love is a quiet, unwavering force, sacrificing without recognition, enduring without complaint. And its immeasurable depth is only fully realized in the aching silence left behind when they're gone. So if you're not following me, most likely you'll never see me again, but if you are, you're always growing every single day.